How do you find the right partner in business? Why should we continually diversify? What do you learn by networking? If you'd like to find out, then you're in the right place. Welcome to Between Views. I'm your host, Ali Koski. This podcast aims to cast light on and connect you with inspirational people, identify them as potential mentors in your journey, and share their stories and wisdom with the world, all the while learning about early business and its dynamics. In this episode, we converse with Wayne Ford, CEO at Vertical Patch, about the benefit of making partnerships with the right people in business.
We also have the associated, the corporate aspect. So we've got an accountant, we've got finance, we've got someone who heads up our sales and marketing, and someone who heads up our HR. And so we've got that little corporate team that tries to manage the team of 15 who are out there. Yeah. Planting seeds and harvesting, and there's packaging. That's the other thing that happens as well, which takes a lot of time and effort. So that's roughly the size, but as we expand each of these farms, we just need more farm hands and what we call farm technicians. Yeah. So that's always that's a challenge for us, because this is something you just can't, you can't ask for a vertical farmer, because people go, what the hell's that? You've got to get them either from an agricultural background or agronomist, someone who's hopefully studied in agriculture, but you don't have to, because we're pretty, it's a very specialist area. But generally speaking, we partner with Western Sydney University. They run the largest agricultural college in Sydney, the old Hawkesbury College. And so we get a lot of students through. So a big part of what we do is we're doing a lot of research and development with Western Sydney Uni, but also Queensland University of Technology. And part of that is actually helping them with that education program. So we do a lot of internships, work experience, both with the students that have currently got as a cohort, but also they get a lot of international students who come to Australia that want to know about agriculture. And so last year, as an example, we probably put about 60 students through our farms, either on a 1-week work experience or a 3-month internship, and that takes a lot of effort. Oh yeah. And you think this is going to be great, but wow, it does. I mean, all of our farm managers love having the students there, but also it's a huge effort to just try and manage those students as well. We get a lot of research fellows who come through as well, because they're always looking at how we can explore some of that R&D aspects of what we do. And so, we're always getting people coming to our farm, either from a research perspective or from a training and development perspective as well.
Oh my gosh, so there's lots of people involved. So what I'm hearing here for the most part is you also need to be really good at making and maintaining relationships with people. One thing I keep thinking about, I'd love to start working more with people rather than doing this kind of thing all solo. I think I'd like to get other people doing more or different angles on podcast, maybe someone to manage things like social media that I'm not necessarily heaps adept at, or don't like that much even. But how do you find these people? Obviously your main partner you were working with, and it just so happened you were looking for that change and it matched. Yeah. Is it divine circumstance that brings people together, or do you have to start networking or asking questions? How do you find a partner for...
Yeah, it's really difficult in this industry because it's relatively new. But so we did a lot of travel in the early days. So both the US and Canada have gone into indoor farming in a big way. So we went to a couple of big conferences last year and the year before in the States, and you get to meet a whole range of people who are already in the industry or about to get in the industry, or even some of the suppliers. And that has always been really good for us because we've learned a lot from that, even if it's one small piece. It's not like you're going to get a whole system knowledge from going to those places, but you might just pick up one person who says something to you about did you know there's this type of control system that you could potentially use? And we're like, oh, okay, no, it didn't.
Right.
And then trying to keep that relationship to say, can you help us out with this? And we've generally found throughout the industry that everyone's really keen to help, help out with other people who are interested in these types of things. We're the same. A lot of initially, I think we were thinking, oh, this is pretty competitive. We better hold back the information because it's IP and it's our we've created it. When really we've sort of backed away from that a little bit and saying, look, there's so many different variations to the type of ways that you can do this. There's no perfect solution for any of this, and really the industry is huge. Its expansion capacity is massive. So we've taken the view that anyone who asks, we'll give them the advice. We generally let anyone into our farms to come and have a look, and they might be able to explore stuff. You've got to be reasonably protective because you just don't let it open to everyone. But at the same time, we've taken that view, and we've generally found people who are of the like minds. We can suss those out pretty quickly, that if they're of like mind and they're generous enough with sharing some of that knowledge and assisting us in some small way, likewise, we're trying to assist the industry as well. But even one of the other things that we did this year, we went to Evoke, which is the largest agricultural conference or get-together of farmers over in Perth earlier this year. And that was great because we met every other type of farmer there as well. There was the dairy, there was the sheep, you name it, livestock, but also broadacre farmers there as well. And you just get to hear their story about what are the challenges and in some ways we always try and help out where we can. And to give you an example, there was one lady there who owned a cattle farm 5 hours north of Perth. So she'd come down, and a big part of farming is you've got to diversify, because if one part of the thing that you're growing or creating is not hot property in the markets, you always got to, what else can I diversify in? So she diversified into canola oil. So fresh first press.
From cattle farming to canola oil.
Well, she had done some canola, but again, they would just harvest it and send it off to market and, generally get a not so reasonable price. So then she thought, well, what's the value add that I can create here? And she thought, well, maybe we can press the canola seed into, maybe a high product, value product. And she did. And her and her husband, were able to create this very small boutique business. And now she's trying to expand it. So it's a bit like, the early days of our olive farming here, that we didn't produce, I don't remember buying any olive oil from Australia, even 10 years ago. And now you see on the shelf, there's olive oils from most parts of Australia, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So she's in that realm where she's early days. Now, and I was asking her what are some of the challenges, and she said the biggest challenge for her was energy. I was like, what do you mean energy? She said, well, we have the energy has been shut off from their property numerous times because of weather events. And she said, we've just had a situation where we've had a whole week of no energy, and you can't get generators big enough to keep the whole farm running for that period of time. They lost a whole bunch of stuff that they'd stored in freezers, and even things such as semination of their livestock was difficult because they didn't have a fridge. So I said, well, what's the problem? And she said, we don't have the capability of leveraging, because we've only got one energy supplier in the region that we're in. So I've been trying to help her out by giving you some examples of some of the farmers, at least on the eastern seaboard, east coast, who have looked to get away from just having that one sole source of energy, whether it's wind power or solar and solar backup, whether it's working with another retailer that might be able to help from an energy perspective. And there's been a few people here on the East Coast that I've actually got to get in touch with Fiona on on Western Australia to give her some advice, because she was really lost for answers. And hopefully that just gives her a bit of a spark to go, wow, there are some alternatives. And that's one aspect of where she can start to de-risk what she's doing on her farm.
Okay.
When she's got a young family, and she said the hardest thing was trying to keep the food up to the kids, you know.
Right.
So there's a really small thing that we're always trying to give back to either the communities that we work with or those more broadly, such as the farming community that we met whilst we're in Perth.
Okay, so give back is one of the major morals, I suppose, in a way.
Yep. So many people have helped us, so we want to do the same to anyone else who's coming along and assist them in any way we possibly can.
Okay, so in partnership, you're meeting people through conference. Sometimes I imagine they just reach out to you via email and things like that, but conference is a good way to like face-to-face meet people and just learn that tiny bit of information that's actually key to the next thing in your journey.
Yep. And
then, fortunately, you're partnered up with a guy who's gung-ho and likes to hear that information and go, bang, let's do that. You said the other day that you kind of like work well together. It's like he's got that go-ahead energy and you've got the like, let's also just look at this first kind of thing. You kind of, it must be really hard, I would have thought, to choose that initial, like the main partner.
Yeah.
The other thing I'm hearing as well is in terms of resources, it sounds like in partnership you're sharing. Like you're sharing a lot of resources all the time.
Yeah, look, resources both in people but also in knowledge. Another case in point is the guys who supply us our nutrient. I was talking to John and I said, what are you actually doing as far as your social media? You mentioned social media stuff. And look, I'll say, hand up, I'm useless at trying to get onto all that stuff. There's so many ways that you can put that out there, whether it's Instagram or even LinkedIn. And we've got so many stories to tell, but we don't. And so we engaged. I spoke to John about it, and he says, oh, look, I've got this lovely lady who works with him. She is just an absolute cracker from social media. She's always looking at different angles. And I said, hey, does she work full-time with you? And he said, no, she's only working 2 days a week. And I said, do you mind if I take her for a day? Would that be possible? I didn't want to, make it difficult for you or have some sort of conflict there. And he goes, no problem. So she's been helping us 1 day a week just with our social media stuff.
Yeah.
It's only just new. So she's starting to learn what we're about and what some of those stories might be. And wow, what a difference. Yeah.
Really?
Huge, massive difference. She gets it. She knows exactly what we're doing. And all of a sudden she's shown us now some of the things that we could be doing, which don't take up a lot of time. They do for people like us who don't know what that craft is. But we've been able to leverage some of our other, what we call industry partners, to go, what do you do for this stuff? What do you do for social media? And then understand whether we can leverage some of that, either the knowledge or even the resource to get us to a point where we're slightly better at social media than we were before.
Okay, so it's important to network and connect with people who, I guess, can do the jobs that either A, your knowledge is lacking in, or B, you just don't simply have time for.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. There's a huge amount of research that goes into running a business. And again, we've got a nice little network of what we call industry partners who are doing roughly the same thing with a different product. And we all sit down at least every few months. We have a coffee or maybe even a bite to eat, and we just talk about, okay, what are the challenges for you? And, can any of us who are sitting around the table help you out with what that problem is? As an example, one of our good friends, industry partner, he's going through what's called a capital raise, or he's trying to get some injection of funds into his business. He's going through a massive expansion, and he's saying, well, how do I do this? So we've been trying to help him with that investment round of presentation. How do you get your company looking a certain way that's presentable to the market that might be a bunch of investors? And so we would sit in a room after he got his presentation together, and we'd critique his presentation and say, wouldn't focus on that. Try and tweak it this way. Try and do this. And we think it's helped him in how he's presented or doing his presentations. He's actually just gone through that round of investor, which can be pretty, hairy. And I think we've sort of helped him get a bit of confidence in what he's presenting, and also to get him focusing on the bits which we think the investors will be looking for.
Okay, so it's like a regular gathering of mentors.
Correct. Yeah.
And you go there specifically with the intention of teaching each other or trying to help each other resolve problems that you're stuck on, just getting someone else's angle or experience on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And everyone's, not experts in everything. So it's so good just to have a chat, and even just to chat about the particular subject. And none of us may have any solution for it, but at least we've spoken about it and gone, I'm suffering the same problem, or that's always an issue for me, or whatever. That's great to be able to do that, because you think, oh, geez, I'm not alone here. It's not just us that's going through this same problem. So that's from any business side of things, you do feel like you're pretty alone running this thing.
Yeah.
To have that as a bit of a backstop is just, it's so vital, I think, because you can feel very isolated and quite alone in what you're doing.
Yeah. Because even with this podcast now, like I'm doing it all solo, and there's times I'm like, man, this would be really cool if I could just like email someone and be like, what are you working on right now?
Yeah.
Something simple like that. It's really made me start to look for some kind of partnership in this. I don't know what it is yet, but that's why I'm so curious about like how you make the partnerships work, where you meet people. It's starting to make me think about, there must be podcasting networking things, because that's a business too. If you get into the deeper side of this kind of stuff, people full blown do this as their career if they want to.
Yep.
So I guess, you got me starting to think more about which people to meet, mentors in podcasting, that kind of thing, to help this grow a little bit, which is good. There's this question that's been on my mind since you mentioned it, and I've just been hanging on to it in my head. So you said in the States and Canada, they started doing a lot of vertical and indoor farming.
Yep.
Now, something that recently got legalized in the States is marijuana, right? It's not legal here, and I would imagine, I'm looking at it, like if the States has done it and Canada's done it, well, probably Australia's going to do it. I've even heard things already that people are preparing their land, or just happy to have the land there ready to go for when that kind of product comes to Australia. I wondered, my question was, in a hydroponic setup, can you grow hemp?
Yeah.
Right.
So most of the producers in other countries, US being one, and every state's different in the US. So each state has its own. Happen to be in Las Vegas in Nevada, and it was legalized in Nevada. Mm-hmm. Heavily licensed though, so you just can't go out and go, right, I'm going to turn my farm into 20 acres of hemp. You've got to have a license. Those licenses are really tightly controlled, really tightly held.
Yes,
so it's a bit like getting the old days of getting a taxi license. Not anymore, but that was, it's like a ticket, golden ticket of, wow, I can grow cannabis. So they're very, very highly sought after. The issue with cannabis is what you're trying to do with cannabis is you're trying to, a little bit like what we're trying to do, is you're trying to bring out a flavour. In their case, you're trying to bring out a particular element of cannabis that's of use, either from a pharmaceutical and benefit.
Or clothing as well, like hemp.
That's more done broadacre because you don't need to get the certain qualities that are so specific. Most
more need like quantity of leaves. Or something like that.
It's quantity of stem actually.
Of stem is what they make.
Is where they get the fibre from.
Okay.
But in the case of using cannabis for pharmaceutical, therapeutical and even for recreational use, it's around the qualities that you can apply to that particular crop. So it's generally done in a controlled environment. Lots of movies talk about, growing hemp.
Yeah, you see it in the
cannabis
sometimes. Yeah,
you do.
The big underground setups.
Yeah, and that's done for another reason. That is,
yes, of course, of course.
But it is a way to actually bring forward those qualities. So the higher that quality is in the cannabis, the greater the value of the product is. So you just can't grow. Generally, it's not grown in a broadacre because you can't generally get those qualities brought out to such a level that it becomes commercially viable. So a lot of it is done in a controlled environment or in a protected cropping basis. Look, I reckon there would be a bit of a rush on. We're not that interested in it because it's, as I said, it's highly regulated. I'm not even sure the values there in it. A lot of people would say there would be because it's a high value product, but at this stage we're not interested. We think there's enough in the produce that we're doing that we can actually get a return.
Yeah, of course.
So and we think it's going to be really competitive. And,
it just sparked my mind straight away when you said talked about diversifying, and it was almost straight after you mentioned about it all happening in the US and Canada. I was like, oh, that could be an interesting thing if it ever, I know that you can use it like medically and stuff here now if you needed or wanted to. And it's, I don't know, it just made me think. It made me think.
And look, I think the beauty about that is everyone's probably heard the stories from, people who need cannabis to help them through whether it's assisting with their particular illness. I think that's going to be so interesting to see how that pans out, because what was once a super illegal drug now it becomes, wow, we can actually get some benefit out of it as long as it's being controlled. So that's super exciting. But from our perspective, no, at this stage we're not looking at it.
Of course.
You talk to my partner, he'll probably say yes, we are. But
I mean, in the end though, should it happen, you're going to have the luxury of having a space that you could, if you wanted to,
we can
go ahead and do,
and that's the beauty.
Which is the beauty of having these spaces. I thought about it when you said like where they were and like how you're getting more and more in cities, and I was like, that's very clever. It's a really clever use of space, and I thought it was fascinating. And obviously, like, here we are. I had all these other questions for you, but we've done question one pretty much, and we're about an hour and 20 into to the chat.
Jeez, that's me. I could talk too much.
No, it's good. I'm enjoying it a lot. You still got good energy to keep going?
Yeah. Happy to, mate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where are we then? So I guess more of like a personal one. Why do you actually love plants and veggies so much? Like your veggies out there, I know the feeling when you show someone your patch.
Yeah.
And you're like, here's my babies, and look at this one. This is a pumpkin, and this is a da-da-da, and you show everyone, and it's a really proud moment. It's almost like a proud dad moment, not a dad, but I imagine that like similar kind of feeling. You're like, my son did this today. When your veggies is blooming, I think it's something that you and I sort of bonded over in a way, that connection having a garden there. So where did veggie gardening start for you, and why do you love it so much?
Thank you for listening to part 3 of our interview with Wayne. If you enjoyed what you heard, please jump over to Vertical Patch or their website and give them a follow. Secondly, if you listen regularly and want to hear more, then please help us out by leaving a star rating and comment, and we can continue to bring you more and more episodes, or by interacting with our online questions via Instagram. Remember to like or share it with a friend, and if it reminds you of them, and to leave a review in the section below. Or if you really found the information valuable, you're welcome to purchase me a scrumptious cup of Make More Podcast Juice at buymeacoffee.com/betweenviews. In other news, Between Views is looking for collaborators in Instagram, social media, product development, and marketing. If you want to join the team or have some interest being creative yourself, then please reach out on Instagram. Thanks so much Finally, if you know someone who deserves to be interviewed or just have some feedback, then send us an email betweenviewsbv@gmail.com or message us on Instagram. Thanks again and see you soon. Between Views.